great segue. The UK is going downhill, and MPs are now calling for a streaming levy to help the UK TV industry. This is the quote unquote Netflix tax that they are sort of they floated this a few times actually. I think we report. I know I reported on it. I don't know if we reported it here on the podcast. The MPs wanted to do a Netflix tax, basically streaming tax to fund the TV license. Basically, it was going to be anyone with a streaming subscription would also pay towards a TV license. Absolutely ridiculous. This is absurd. I'm purposely on the BBC because this is the most biased that I could possibly find, and I just thought it would be interesting to see what they say. But anyway, says this: a share of the revenue streaming services make for subscription fees should be paid into a fund to support British high-end TV production, an influential group of MPs has said. In a new report, the Culture, Media and Support Committee urged the government to improve support measures for procedures while safeguarding the creation of distinctly British content. Now, just quickly, these people don't know what British is. They can't define British. They don't know what it means to be British or English. These are the subversive, evil, gross people that are looking to flood the country with immigrants, whilst also saying anyone can be English and also not being able to define British values. So to say that they want something which is distinctly British in content, I laugh in your face, obviously. It follows an inquiry into the UK TV and film industry, which examined the effect of the rise of streaming platforms like Netflix, Amazon, and Apple TV. The report noted how vital dramas such as adolescence are to the country's identity, national conversations, and talent pipeline, which they say is now under threat. Quote, time for streamers to put their money where their mouth is. Right. And then they suggest that the streaming companies should pay 5% of their UK subscriber revenue into a cultural fund to help finance drama with a specific interest to British audiences. Well, surely the British audiences are watching that stuff elsewhere because they make it. If the BBC were making that stuff, people would be watching the BBC, wouldn't they? Instead, we get gay race communism disguised as Doctor Who. I mean, what? So Netflix did reply to this, by the way, and said the UK is Netflix's biggest production hub outside of North America. We want it to stay that way. But in an increasingly competitive global market, it's key to create a business environment that incentivizes rather than penalizes investment, risk-taking and success. Levies diminish competitiveness and penalize audiences who ultimately bear the increased costs. Basically, we'll pass the costs on to the subscribers, or we'll leave. Like, we don't care. We'll just leave because they can, obviously. So that's the news. That's that. Park that for 1 second, though. I had a special guest, you'll know him as well, Bo, Lewis Brackpool, on the channel earlier for a fantastic conversation about his recent freedom of information requests to the government, where they admitted they work with TV writers to push messaging. So let's put both of these together. License fees are down. People are checking out. Government admits to working with TV writers to push propaganda, social cohesion messages, just general messages on healthcare systems and things like this. Just general things, right? A bit weird. It's propaganda, psyops. And then you have the government now pushing for a levy to fund their propaganda arm. That's basically what it is. It's, we need, because remember, no government ever has actually abolished the TV license. They've all said it. They've all floated the idea here and there. No one's ever done it. Why? Because it's their literal propaganda arm. That's why. They never will. And so because people are checking out and they can't enforce it, right? They can't legally enforce it because we're in a completely different age now, and the government's losing their grip on this messaging, this propaganda. What they're going to do instead? They're going to tax streamers, basically, so they can fund their propaganda to the I don't know, few million plebs that still watch this shit. That's my take on it anyway. I think it's disgusting. I think it's transparent. And again, it's only when you piece the pieces of information together, again, from Lewis Brackpool's fantastic FOI requests to these articles here, where they just come out and say that that's what they're trying to push for levies and stuff. Put two and two together. That's my take on it. So, Bo, I'll go to you first because this is obviously a distinctly British.
Yeah, sure. So first of all, Lewis Brackpool is great. Anyone who hasn't heard of him, check him out. He's good. He's great. He's really, really good on it. Nearly everything he touches. He's been on Load Seaters a number of times. Great dude. Yeah. So the BBC. God, where do you even start? I mean, yeah, I think you're completely right, Nate. That this wing of the establishment, the BBC, sort of the front-facing propaganda arm of the government, is dying on its ass, right? People pay less and less attention to the BBC, all the while the BBC becoming more and more blatant as well. But it has actually always been the way. Ever since the 1920s, the BBC it's just always been a wing of the establishment, the mouthpiece for the establishment. And in fact, more than that, quite small fractions of the establishment, like the Foreign Office or the Cabinet Office or something. So they're completely not to be trusted. Like ever since the 20s and the 30s, whenever they would pack the BBC with sort of lefties and stuff. And if you look at it nowadays, whenever you get sort of a new pundit on a news show or a cultural any sort of show that's doing criticism or commentary, it will always be a lefty. Always, it's either a sort of wishy-washy central leftist or a full-blown communist like Ashaka. That's who they get on as guests, right? So the BBC is terrible. I wrote an article a while ago. I mention it from time to time because it's just my thoughts and feelings on it distilled down. It's called "We Need to Talk About Auntie," because BBC used to be, not much anymore, used to be called Auntie. It's weird for the Americans, might think that's a weird thing. But the BBC used to call itself, and people would call it Auntie, like Auntie's Sporting Bloopers and stuff like that. Because it was supposed to be like a friendly member of your family. That was how it was sort of spun. And now it's like a destructive, evil member of your family, sitting in your living room, spurting bile into your face every single day, accusing you of being racist and bigoted, and that your history is wrong, and you're guilty of historic crimes, and there's something intrinsically wrong with being white and stuff like that. So, no, the BBC is pure evil. And as for the government, like this, I think it mentioned Dame Dinage, right? She's a moron. Yeah. She's a complete moron. At a glance, an idiot. And so, no, I'm not going to pay another penny. They'll have to fold it into one of the taxes that you're not allowed to not pay, like income tax or something, before they get any sort of levy out of me. Yeah, they've realised that their propaganda wing is faltering, and that they need new avenues to do their brainwashing. Well, like I say, they won't get a penny out of me.
Keir Starmer apparently has expressed some skepticism about this tax, although he's also floating ideas about extending that license fee to streaming only homes or whatever. You know, Bo, you've really done some damage to the BBC with your opting out of the license fee. It's finally starting to catch up, and they're trying to figure out some way that they can overcome independently minded residents, how they can get their money. Could this at all have anything to do with Keir Starmer coming out with his full-throated support of that Netflix show Adolescence just 2 weeks ago?
That was absolutely propaganda from the government as well. 100%. Like, they're weaponizing it. It's a form of propaganda. Again, look, the majority of people that go around stabbing people is not white. It's not white boys.
Right.
It's not. All right. It's just not. So the whole thing was just propaganda.
Well, it's
right?
loosely
It's
based
just
on a true story, wasn't it?
Yes.
And of course, the kid was a black kid.
As far as I know, I don't even think he was a legal resident, was he?
I'm not sure.
Something has happened in England. Like when I said earlier, I said it's fallen. The UK has fallen. It's like you have these people in charge that I just feel like you guys are going to have. There's no way for you guys to redress your grievances. It seems like no one there.
I want Trump to offer asylum for us, basically refugee status.
Well, we could have a great repeal act that would repeal a lot of laws that have been passed since 1997 or since 1946, actually. Anyway, quick thing to say as well about, I just want to mention, because I think a lot of people don't know this, but the BBC is bolstered by a royal charter. And a royal charter is something a bit different, not unique, but they're quite rare. So in other words, a government, it would have the power to repeal that royal charter, but it's a bit more difficult and complicated than if it was just a simple law. So this idea that we'll pay a license, or anyone that watches BBC has to pay a license fee every single year, 160, 170 odd quid, whatever it is, year on year. Before the BBC are legally not allowed to do that and not allowed to prosecute people for not doing it, you would have to revoke the BBC's royal charter, and that they run I can't remember exactly, but they run every 7 or 8 years, something like that, and they get basically automatically renewed. And every now and then again, like Boris Johnson did it once, he just made noises, he'd say things like, we might have to look at the royal charter one day if the BBC doesn't start doing, when there was all the Brexit stuff. And the BBC was massively partisan against Brexit. Boris one time, just one time, literally, like, remember the Royal Charter? We could sort of end you if we wanted to. But they've got no real intention of doing that. If I was Prime Minister, I would revoke it on day one. It might be a couple more years until it actually came to an end, but I would revoke it on day one. 100%. 100%. This is now just a vehicle for subversion and evil.
Well, and obviously they're not collecting enough money to keep doing it. So now they're going to foist this 5% tax, which apparently they're wanting, if the streamers don't do this voluntarily within a year, they're recommending mandatory implementation. So this is coming one way or the other. And that's why that's why I mentioned Starmer talking about this Netflix show. There's something going on. There's something going on that they're not telling us in regards.
Yeah, there was a charity that worked closely with it, and they received government money. It's absolutely connected.
It's corrupt. Totally corrupt.
Yeah, of course it is. Of course it is. It's all social engineering. And again, the fact that if anyone in the government all unify behind one thing and start pushing one thing, mate, be incredibly skeptical about that. Be incredibly skeptical about it. Like, I refuse to watch it. People are like, yeah, but it's really good. I don't care if it's good. I refuse to watch something which will demonize white, British indigenous kids and be used as a bludgeon to make them feel even more demoralized than they possibly are by looking at the absolute state of the country every day. No, I'm not going to watch that shit. Yeah. Fuck off. Go away.
Poison tree.
It might be well shot. I don't care.
Yeah,
I'm not interested. No, it shouldn't even exist. And people are like, "Oh yeah, but it should. We got to show it in schools." No. All this ultimately, it's just going to radicalize more people. Quite frankly, because boys, they don't understand boys. They don't understand them. That's going to radicalize them even more because they're not dumb. They know that their peers. Their white peers aren't the ones running around stabbing people. They just look at it and go, what the fuck? Yeah, no, show it in schools, actually. Show it in schools. Radicalize them. Because that's all that's going to happen. Do it.
You say it's an attempt at, or not an attempt, it is social engineering. Yeah, it's quite a crude attempt at it as well, isn't it? Because anyone that knows
Yeah.
that it's based on vaguely based on a true story, and the real perpetrator was a black kid, and everyone knows from just lived experience that if you're gonna get stabbed, it's highly likely it will be by a person of color, not a 13-year-old white boy.
Yeah.
So it's quite a crude attempt. I think only NPC brainwashed boomers actually buy the narrative, right? Or people that are hell-bent on destroying our society, the fabric of our society anyway, and don't care if it's a lie. I don't care if people know if it's a lie or anything. I think most people, I hope that most people don't actually buy it.
You know exactly how I know that it was complete government propaganda. Well, one, it was a white boy. It's a white lead, right? It's a bit weird. Two, it's not an interracial family, which is in everything on Netflix now, right? It's white on white violence. Yeah, okay. Yeah, this is all propaganda. Complete propaganda, complete nonsense, complete shit. Netflix, the one time they don't race swap someone. Okay, good. Excellent. Oh, come on. Come on. Oh dear, Nick, we haven't heard from you on this, bud. You got anything to say? Don't worry if not. But yeah,
this sort of reminds me of like the UK took a page right out of the CIA's playbook with the Project Mockingbird. If you guys are familiar with that, which is basically for people in the chat, or if you guys don't know, it's basically a large-scale program that the CIA began back in the Cold War to basically manipulate the domestic American news media organizations for propaganda purposes. To basically influence public opinion internationally. And it sounds like that's what the UK is trying to do here with Netflix. But I don't know. Like I said, UK is going downhill. You guys just need to move over here and start shooting some guns with us.
Yeah, we still have that right here. Barack Obama has been involved with Netflix with his Higher Ground Productions for a while, but apparently this had nothing to do with that. This was put together by Brad Pitt's production company, I think that Adolescence was.
Yeah, but it also had fun. There was a company that worked with it.
It's interesting that Nick
from the UK government.
Yeah, of course.
It's interesting that Nick mentioned Mockingbird because I wrote another article a while ago. I just put it in the private chat. I called it "In the Shadow of Mockingbird."
Oh, nice.
Because what I was saying is that it was actually back when. Do you remember when the Hunter Biden laptop, the laptop from hell, was a big story?
That's right.
And
Russia.
Yeah. And at the time, a load of ex-CIA, not just CIA, but all sorts of people at the top of the security state, the US security state, came out and wrote an open letter saying the laptop thing isn't real; it's all a Russian misinformation thing. And then it was shown later, months later, that it is indeed real. And I wrote an article saying, in the shadow of Mockingbird, that after the church committees and the Rockefeller Commission, the CIA and various other wings of the intelligence services said, yes, look, we have been trying to manipulating public opinion since the 40s in all sorts of ways. Things like Time magazine and CBS are basically fronts for the intelligence services, but we'll stop doing it now. Mockingbird, Mockingbird is real, but we'll stop doing it now. And this was in like the 70s. And I was just saying that obviously they didn't stop it. Obviously they didn't. In fact, they've become far, far more pernicious, far, far more pervasive ever since the advent of the internet. They've got their tendrils as deep into that as it goes. So yeah, we still live in the shadow of Mockingbird. Nothing has stopped. If anything, it's been ramped up massively. If anything, the funding and the cynicism of it has been ramped up out of all recognition. So yeah, we live in a post-Mockingbird world where we wish it was just sort of Time magazine and CBS, right?
Yeah.
Anyway,
it's everything now. Social media, YouTube, news organizations, podcast, everything.
It's why people love like a channel like this, or like Drinker or Nerdrotic, or not even just for cultural stuff, even for their politics. It's why people like things like Lotus Eaters or Tim Pool or whatever, or someone like Alex Jones. It's why people love that, because it's actually, for right or wrong, it's actually just a real dude, right? It's actually just a human being saying what they think. I mean, again, whether they're right or wrong, Lotus Eaters, Tim Pool, Alex Jones have had bad takes, right? We're not always right. But the point is that we're, quite clearly not just controlled opposition, reading off a script that was written for us by the intelligence services.
Yeah.
And people know it. People can see it. People can feel it.
Yeah. You remember that clip that came out where all the news organizations across the whole entire country here in the U.S. were all basically were saying the same thing word for word?
Oh, yeah. It happens all the time. It happens all the time. There's one guy, I think Salty Cracker. I don't know if you know him off YouTube. A few times I've seen him do a video where he's a compilation of across America, the local or state news affiliations saying exactly the same thing. Like the word is something like, the walls are closing in on Trump. That's the line. The walls are closing in on Trump. The walls are closing in on Trump. Oh, the walls closing in on Trump. And there's like 20, 30 of them. But we get it here as well. Exactly the same thing. You can go into a newsagent's in the morning and you see all the main newspapers, like
exactly the same headline.
The Sun, the Mirror, the Telegraph, the Mail, the Express. And it's, sometimes it's the exact same image and the exact same headline across all of the newspapers. It's like, okay,
the talking points have gone out. It's all coordinated. It's all coordinated. Because if we knew how they really were, we don't hate the mainstream media enough. If we knew how much we were being lied to, we would rise up. I mean, I think that's really all they can do now. They've got to keep lying, and they've got to keep us suppressed and keep the information they don't want out suppressed. It seems more about trying to keep the truth suppressed than it is to get their little messaging out. It's bizarre. We live in a world of lies. It's insane.
Again, it's like the Jussie Smollett thing. You can't admit you were wrong. Like, you can't admit that you've been acting in an evil way for decades. You can't. You'll go to prison still insisting you weren't lying. I mean, I don't know why I'm laughing. It's not funny. It's terrible.
And you have the Vice President of the United States coming out to support you.
Kamala Harris.
Bizarre.
So funny. We've got some super chats. Sort of one's kind of sort of about this, but not. So Larry Quadowitz, super chat $6, says, I'm in New York, so I don't know much about UK politics. I do enjoy getting all of your perspectives on it, though. Here's the only contribution to the topic I have. On Severance, the evil guy in charge is named Keir. They even say, praise Keir. Coincidence? I think not.
Yeah, probably not.
Appreciate that, Larry, my dude.